Bună ziua! Bine ați venit la sesiunea pe care sper și cred că la sfârșitul evenimentului o veți considera cea mai interesantă. Și vă spun asta nu ca să mă laud, nu va fi meritul meu. Și aici am să vin și cu o steluță, m-am uitat în agenda și am văzut că sesiunea era bifată cu limba română, ceea ce se va întâmpla în primul sfert de oră. Dar pentru că vreau să vă spun foarte multe lucruri interesante care nu au foarte mult sens pe slide-uri, am invitat câțiva colegi dintr-un demo center al nostru care vor intra live și care vă vor arăta tot ce mi-a fost mie greu să vă descriu în cuvinte. Numele meu este Răzvan Atimariti, mă ocup de arhitectura de colaborare de la Cisco. Și astăzi vom vorbi sau vă voi povesti puțin despre cum vedem noi viitorul locului de muncă. Viitor care de altfel a început și dacă mie personal îmi place să spun că locul de muncă nu mai este un loc, alții mai pregătiți decât mine spun că noi cu toții trecem printr-un moment de transformare fără precedent în ceea ce înseamnă relațiile de muncă. Am pus și anii trecuți, știți foarte bine dumneavoastră statisticile, lumea lucrează foarte mult hibrid, de acasă, din standuri, din tren, de peste tot. Și în ciuda faptului că e foarte multă tehnologie în jurul nostru, avem AI, avem procese, avem automatizări, care fără discuție ne ajută foarte mult, tot noi, oamenii, rămânem cei mai importanți. Și cred cu tărie și acum și chiar și pe viitor, repet, în ciuda unor estimări că oamenii vor face diferența. Și cred că este foarte important ca oamenii să fie aproape, dacă se poate fizic, dacă nu, folosind tot tehnologia de care vorbeam, să poată colabora fără limite. Numai așa putem aduce inovație, putem aduce eficiență. Și pentru că, pe de o parte, trebuie să fim aproape, pe de altă parte, am văzut că mai trebuie să mai și umblăm, suntem în mai multe locuri, Cisco a încercat să vină cu o tehnologie care să ne ajute să le îmbinăm pe cele două. Să fim aproape, chiar dacă uneori suntem la distanță. Și pentru asta avem nevoie să comunicăm, în primul rând, voce și video, în măsura în care se poate. Să nu existe bariere, pentru că, ok, vorbim, ne auzim, dar de multe ori trebuie să lucrăm pe documente, pe planuri împreună și încercăm ca tehnologia să elimine aceste bariere și oriunde am fi să putem să avem acces la toate tool-urile necesare și să putem să colaborăm. Și nu în ultimul rând, digitizarea despre care discutăm cu toții este aici. Folosim inteligența artificială, bineînțeles și noi, ca toată lumea, dar în continuare credem, așa cum spuneam, că oamenii sunt cei mai importanți și sunt în centrul atenției. Pentru că trecem prin tot spectrul de care povesteam, am încercat să oferim soluții pentru oricare dintre situații. Că suntem pe drum, că suntem în biroul de acasă, că suntem în birouri de tip hot desking, poate ați început să le implementați în săli de întâlnire, în săli de training. Pentru toate acestea am încercat să venim cu o tehnologie la dispoziția dumneavoastră, repet, ca să puteți să fiți eficienți ca și cum ați fi în aceeași sală. Și avem o întreagă gamă de echipamente și dacă acum 2-3 ani spuneam, nu știu dacă ați auzit că avem căști și camere video, acum spun, sper că știți că avem și căști și camere video, dar când vine vorba de zona de telefonie, chiar cred că nu mai e nimeni care nu știe ce putem face și avem gamă de telefoane pentru zona industrială, pentru depozite de birouri și o întreagă gamă de echipamente video, de la cele personale pentru birourile de acasă sau pentru spațiile închise, echipamente unde putem interacționa foarte ușor cu ecrane tactile și pentru celelalte săli, indiferent de configurație, indiferent de nevoi, avem soluții. Și inclusiv, bineînțeles, și pentru boardroom-urile cele mai reprezentative. Și, deși ne dorim foarte mult să apreciați eforturile pe care le-am făcut să dezvoltăm platforma WebEx, știu că mulți dintre dumneavoastră folosesc și alte platforme, cumva normal. De aceea, echipamentele noastre, toate echipamentele noastre video pot accesa orice tip de platformă. Mai mult decât atât, putem rula pe echipamentele noastre atât softul nostru, RoomOS, dar și softul de la Microsoft care TeamsOS, dacă nu greșesc. Da, deci putem rula oricare dintre ele sau le putem rula pe amândouă. Și nu avem niciun fel de problemă, repet, putem participa în orice tip de întâlnire virtuală, indiferent de platforma pe care este organizată, fără restart la echipament, fără nicio problemă. Avem un buton, Join Meeting, și am intrat în întâlnire, indiferent de, repet, de platformă. Și cam toată gama noastră de echipamente permite această înregistrare duală. Bun. Dar ce facem ca să reducem distanța de care am tot vorbit la început? Și pentru acest lucru, cu câțiva ani în urmă, am început o colaborare cu celebra de acum Nvidia. Mă scuzați, aștept confirmarea, nu sunt nepoliticos când mă uit la ceas. Avem o colaborare cu celebra Nvidia. Toate echipamentele noastre au chipset Nvidia și toate funcțiile despre care vom vorbi și pe care vi le vor arăta colegii noștri sunt disponibile indiferent de platforma pe care sunt utilizate. Și folosind aceste chipseturi și funcționalitățile pe care le-am dezvoltat, avem recunoașterea feței, avem detectarea zgomotului, direcția de zgomot, ne ajută să localizăm vorbitorul, avem recunoaștere facială, avem eliminarea spațiilor libere, deci focusul este pe persoane. Și de asemenea o funcție foarte importantă și care cred eu că nu mă laud când spun funcționează cel mai bine, eliminarea zgomotului de fond. Deci am cumpărat o companie care făcea așa ceva și am integrat soluția în echipamentele noastre. Un alt aspect foarte important și o funcționalitate pe care am lansat-o de foarte puțină vreme și pe care noi numim spatial meetings, meeting-uri spațiale pe românește, care înseamnă că putem, cu un echipament absolut obișnuit, este practic următorul din gamă față de cel pe care îl vedeți aici, care are două lentile, putem să transmitem imagini în 3D către cei de la distanță, folosind un echipament de la o altă companie cu care colaborăm, e vorba de Apple, și cu Apple Vision Pro putem să avem imaginea 3D. Gândiți-vă în proiectare, dacă probabil că mulți dintre dumneavoastră lucrați, aveți colegi în alte țări, pe alte continente, lucrați la prototipuri, în educație, în foarte multe domenii. Este o soluție care funcționează foarte, foarte bine. Mai aveam câteva lucruri să vă spun, dar dacă mai am timp la sfârșit, am să trec la colegii mei, care de fapt au partea cea mai interesantă. Poți să-i dai și mai tare? Ok. Cum spuneam, am să trec în engleză pentru colegii mei. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for coming to Timișoara, to Romania. I just did a brief introduction, but you are the stars of the day, so thank you for coming.
All right, with that, I will, is that good for me to take over?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I just have one person dialing in another device, but in the meantime, I'll kick us off. My name is Stephen. I work at Cisco Norway. I am one of the presenters here. You will meet Jamie, my colleague, very, very soon. What we want to do over the next 30 minutes or so is to really show you the power of our devices. This is the best way to see it because, well, you might have a fantastic two-day event where you're going to hear a lot of speakers and see a lot of presentations. The best way to actually feel the power of our devices is to see it all in action and really get us to put our money where our mouths are, let's be honest. And you're dialed into Norway because this is the home of collaboration. This is Cisco's largest R&D site in Europe. And this is where everything that you're going to see is being created. What I will do is actually just explain what you're seeing right now, because I'm telling you that we're here to talk about Cisco, but you're maybe noticing that I'm not actually using a Cisco device for this part of it right now. So I'll explain this. What I'm using right now for this part is a laptop, and the reason is this is what most people are seeing nowadays. This is what we call the world's most popular video conferencing device. Whether it is people just being used to using laptops to stay connected, maybe they're just familiar with it, they know that they can open a laptop and join a meeting, or maybe they just get nervous looking at these fancy video devices and they think, I'll just use the laptop. For whatever reason, this is what most people experience, and let's be honest, it's not the best, right? I mean, if I'm being in right now, just to make that point very clear to you all, this is not a very good sight. You know, you're all just looking at my nose right now. This is not flattering whatsoever. It also looks like I'm looking down on you. This doesn't set a good tone for a very collaborative meeting. But even worse, there are people who just join meetings like this. They do not pay any attention. Like, they join like this. They don't care. They just go, what's on today's agenda? And look, I'm blessed with a very shiny scalp, so I just look like a little egg at the bottom of the screen. Which might be quite funny for, you know, like a quick catch up with family or a quick sync with colleagues, but you're supposed to have a very important meeting for 1 to 2 hours and someone joins like that, immediately you're taken out of the conversation because something is distracting. So, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to leave from this because I think we've seen enough of the laptop, and I'm going to join from something which we believe is a much better condition to meetings from a desk device. So I'll leave from here, and then I will join from something like this instead. So what I'm joining you from now is one of Cisco's desk devices. To be more specific, I'm using the Desk Pro. So the Desk Pro is a 27-inch touchscreen-enabled video conferencing device, and hopefully what you can see when I join using something like this, opposed to the laptop, is something that even just looks a lot nicer. You can see a lot more detail in the cameras, everything's a lot more colourful, a lot more realistic and vibrant. It looks a lot nicer than a laptop, and hopefully you hear a difference as well. We are very proud with the microphones we put in here. We even take little things like the placement of the microphones into account, because on the Desk Pro we've got them on the side and on the top, so that we avoid any resonance from the desk. Now, if you imagine when you hear people speaking on a laptop, their microphone is here, right up against the desk, and that's when you get that kind of boomy sound to their voice, and you will know that something doesn't sound right. Whereas with our devices, what we want is to give you as much clarity, as much depth, and actually make what you hear sound like what you would hear in real life, as if we were talking face to face with each other. So I do apologize if you don't like this voice. It is kind of the voice I'm stuck with, and this is what I sound like. So you can spare a thought for all the Cisco people who need to listen to this every day. But this is Cisco. We didn't join you just to talk about better cameras and better microphones, because other places can do that as well. What we believe sets us apart is being able to create these cinematic experiences for people. And even in something like the Desk device, this is something that we do as well. So even our smaller devices like the Desk Pro, this also has camera intelligence here. As you can see, I stand up to make that point, and the camera follows me up to keep me in frame. Once I've done, I sit back down, and the camera follows me down as well. I know that I can sit in front of the device, know that I'm going to be seen at all times, and I have a lot more flexibility of moving around. I don't need to carry the laptop around to keep myself in frame. I don't need to think about any of that. So we also want to make sure that in terms of audio, we want to make sure that I'm heard at all times, because meetings always have important information. And, you know, we say that audio is probably the most important part of video, which might sound a bit strange because we're talking about video, but if we think of it this way, if my video goes off at any point during a video call, you can still hear me, you can still hear this amazing Scottish accent. Thankfully you couldn't see me, but you know, we can still have a conversation with each other. But if I was going to announce a brand new Cisco device that we are making at Cisco Norway, which no one in that room knows about, which is called the Room Kit. Right, and I cannot repeat that information again because there's people out there. So you heard everything, right? Exactly, yes. So a little bit silly because I did turn off the microphone for that part, but it gets that point across that it doesn't matter how good your cameras or your camera intelligence are, as soon as you lose audio in a video call, you lose the conversation. So what we are really proud of is the audio intelligence that we have in our devices, the noise removal that is there, that is going to make sure that you on the far end can hear everything I've got to say, regardless of what's going on here. So I've actually turned this off right now. This is always on as a default on our devices because you don't know you need noise removal until you need it, and we want to save you the issues of having to go in and turn it on. You don't need to think about it. But I've turned it off now just to kind of prove the power of this. So we at Cisco Norway work right next to a really big motorway, and Norway gets very icy in the winter. So we can hear a lot of this during the winter times, and this is going to be very distracting for you right now, because you're going to be thinking, what is going on outside in Norway? Well, what I can do is reactivate noise removal and optimize this for my voice so that I can continue to speak to you. You don't really need to worry about what's going on outside. If I turn it off again, I'm going to push this to the absolute limits right now. We use these devices at home, and a lot of the time when you have kids, you need to look after your kids when you work from home. And they always have the most annoying toys, and they always come in at the worst possible time. So my kid comes running in with this, but there's also an accident going on outside. It is very distracting. So what we'll do, optimize it for your voice. Maybe try and hide the twerk and llama in the background to be a bit more professional. But, that damage was already done. But as you can see, I don't need to shout over any of the noises happening here. I can just continue to speak even though it's chaos in here. And I know that you're still going to hear me. I would question why you were in such a chaotic environment, but sometimes that happens. And that's also why we have headsets that have the noise removal for you, so that you don't need to hear anything and everyone on the far end will be able to hear you perfectly clear. Now, the last thing that I want to show you, in order to do so, I just need to share some content with you. This is super easy to do on our devices. You can do this wirelessly with the Miracast, AirPlay. You can use a direct connection. I'm using a USB-C cable right now. But what I want to show you is the desk devices and show you what I'm using right now. But what happens when you are using a single screen? Are we using a single screen or a dual screen for this?
Yes, it's a single screen.
Single screen. So my point is made clear. So maybe you've got a really nice big screen, but when I start sharing content, the content that I'm sharing takes over all of the screen. I get moved to that little box at the top, right? Yeah. I don't like that because I'm an attention seeker. I like to be in the spotlight at all times. So I can activate something like Immersive Share on this device. What Immersive Share is going to do is basically act as like a green screen and put me in front of the content I'm sharing, so I can still be part of the focus here. This is a touchscreen device, so if I'm not happy with where I am, I just move myself around if I want to. Maybe I want to make myself teeny tiny Stephen and put myself on top of the Desk Pro just to say, This is the device that I'm using right now to speak to you. But absolutely everything I've shown you is available across our entire desk portfolio. So it's available on the Desk Pro, it's available on the Desk, but it's also available on the Desk Mini. So regardless of which size, which model you go for, these experiences are going to be the same across that portfolio. But the important thing to note, which you can see down here, and I'll just make myself a little bit Stephen to prove that, it is the Desk Pro that is certified for Microsoft Teams rooms. That is one of the main differences here. Now, immersive share, something like this is maybe not something that you're going to use in every single meeting that you have, but if you think about those 50, 60 page slideshow presentations that would get a little bit boring. They're boring for me, they're boring for my colleague Jamie. Doing something like immersive share is going to make it a little bit more engaging, a little bit more interactive for your audience. Now, this was just a very quick kind of tour down our smaller devices. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to Jamie, who is going to take us through your more traditional meeting room environment. So Jamie, I will come join you in just a second, but over to you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And yeah, I'm sitting in one of our sort of more medium-sized meeting spaces, a sort of standard size, if you will. And currently, actually, I've got the intelligence engaged in it. So what I'm going to do is actually turn that off. The reason being, I want you to see exactly what the camera is picking up at any given time. Because look, you've spent some time with a Scottish gentleman, now you've got some time with an English gentleman. The reality is, though, if you were joining us for the first time, and I don't know, let's say we had two very animated people here, like myself and Stephen, maybe not that animated, but certainly animated, and sort of people who like to talk with their hands, it might be a bit hard to focus, and the same can be true in the more likely situation where you have someone who's sitting like this. And you now know that you've got another 2 hours of this call to go through spreadsheets. We're going to have a great meeting. We can start to see why this might be a little bit boring. 2 hours of that is long enough to test any normal human being's patience, and that's absolutely fine. It should do. Our devices are built to react to human behaviors, to mimic the type of personality that we would have if we were sitting in the room with us. But instead of talking about it, let's show you. And the first of those ones is our group mode. Now, this is the default setting on the device. We don't leave it on manual, so you won't turn it on. See that? We default to group. Group mode is great when you just want to make sure you're capturing everyone. If you've got a whole group of us around the table, if you've just got a couple of us. But let's be honest, if you've just got a couple of us, there isn't really just two of us. There's a third participant in this room, and it's taking up quite a bit of space. Of course, referring to the table. Probably the most popular participant of any meeting room. But not really the most talkative, and not the one who's giving you anything to hang on to in a meeting. So we can take this a bit further, can't we?
Yes, we can. So if we maybe enable frames, what we're able to get is a tighter focus on the people within that room. So cutting out the table that was there to give you more context of everyone in there. And much like what I showed you with the Desk Pro, the cameras are very adaptable in this mode as well. What the device will do is it will wait for the person who's moving to stop moving before adjusting itself. So, as you see, when Jamie walks around here, it will wait for him to stop moving before then adjusting. And since Jamie and I are in close proximity, we are put into one single frame. We're not going to create a hybrid image of two frames coming together, because then that can get distracting with duplicate shoulders and overflowing body parts. It just gets very distracting for you on the other side. But as I said, we want to give you the context, so maybe I'm talking a little bit, but you want to see what Jamie is doing. So maybe he's agreeing with me, maybe he's disagreeing with me. We are Scottish and English, so we are always disagreeing with each other about everything. But even little things, like if we end up having a conversation in the room locally, we're looking at each other right now, and you on the far end can see that we're looking at each other, because we're also keeping our frames static. We're not going to move everyone's faces around the screen, because when you start doing that, you get conversations that look like this. And everyone is being very serious and acting like Logan Roy in Succession, but no one is actually looking at each other. And for you on the far end, that's another distraction that is going to take you out of that conversation. So at all times, we want to make sure basically that you feel as much a part of this table as possible.
Absolutely, and Stephen really brings up a good point, because that context is so important, and minimizing those distractions is going to help keep you engaged in these cinematic experiences. And actually to put the cinematics into it a bit, even visually what we're seeing now, this is something which we have lifted directly from the entertainment industry. If you look at go on YouTube, where there's a podcast with two participants, when they're in conversation, this is what it looks like. If you turn on the news, you've got Sky News on, they've got someone coming in to talk about the latest topics. This is kind of, well actually, let's be honest, if you turn on the news and they've dialed someone in, you're getting that up the nose shot. However, if they were lucky enough to have a Cisco device, this is what it would look like on the news as well. The key point is, these are things which your end users are already used to. These are visual layouts that people are seeing on every single day. We want to be able to play to that dynamic, and that's actually why we work you know what, I'm talking a lot, so what I'll do is actually just take speaker track, because then I can give you a bit more focus. This is what I'm going on if I was leading a webinar, for instance, and as much as I do want to give you the full context of the room, there's sometimes where I just want to have the sole focus. If I'm leading something important, like what we were talking about before, like I was saying, we actually do considerable work with behavioral scientists to make sure that those moments of cognitive dissonance are as minimal as possible. And one of the key aspects of that is being able to maintain things like eye contact, being able to feel like I'm talking to you even if I'm sitting on the other side of the world. And with speaker track, that's great. But I'm not talking to the people who are sitting here with me. The people who have actually come to be a part of this meeting with me, they get to see the side of my head for the whole of the presentation. So instead, with Cisco's more advanced features, what we can do is, instead, if I talk to Stephen, we can make sure that you do maintain that content, that you do get that context of the conversation, even if it's happening across the table. I can have a direct conversation with the people in the room with me, and all the while, that side camera is making sure that you don't lose out on any of the action. But maybe most importantly for this experience, your end users shouldn't be flustered. They shouldn't be thinking, which camera can I use? Which camera should I switch to? Because the reality is, that's being taken care of by us. The codec's got its own, if you need to visualize it, you can call it our AI director, if you will, making the choice of which cut to make, which camera to choose, who to frame and how to do it. That's all taken care of by the device. And actually, to take that a step further, that USB-C cable that Stephen was using to share with us earlier, that same cable applies to the entire portfolio. And as well as being able to use it to share content, you can also use this cable to dial into any meeting. You can bring your own device for our entire portfolio. So if you want to call your family on WhatsApp and organize an event on Facebook and you want to do it over video, or maybe you want to stream on Twitch, or I don't know, record a webinar that you can then upload onto Vidcast. You can do all of that just by using the USB-C pass-through capabilities on not only this device, but the entire portfolio. So at this point, we've shown you a lot of different modes, we've shown you some advanced features. Should we take it up a notch? Should we do it all at once? Should we show you what happens when we really push these things? Good. So what I'm going to do is introduce you to one of my friends. That is Lando Norris. Now, with this, what we can do is make sure that not only can you get that focus on the active speaker, but we can use a multi-screen to actually make sure you're getting the room. And can I ask, how are you seeing us at the moment? Do you have one screen dedicated to us and another one dedicated to the room?
Yes, that's correct.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's what we want, because we want to be able to give you the ability to maintain focus as a key presenter, but at all times we want you to get that feeling from what's happening in the room. If you need to make a point or interject, and I'm telling you that Lando Norris is the best driver there ever was, I'm fully aware we've got the Italian Grand Prix coming up, and I'm going to see a British person on the podium for that, it's going to be amazing. You can see that he disagrees with me. You don't have to presume that everyone in this room agrees with my sentiment. And it gives you that extra level of confidence, so that when I am having these discussions, that's right, we can do this one as well. When we are having these more local discussions, not only can you see exactly what I'm saying in the active speaker, but you can see the reaction of the entire room the whole time as well. We want this to feel as natural as possible for your end users, and that's why all of these features are automatic. There's nothing we need to do. All we're doing is simply cycling along the presets. And from there, all of the heavy lifting is taken care of by the device. Now, one thing from this point, and I think that was a good proof of it, Our cameras are very good at not only picking up faces, but framing them very well. Now, why might that be an issue? Well, we're almost at the end of our thing, and I know that someone has this space booked, which is why I keep kind of looking around, because the reality is, you know that if you have glass walls, you can see through them quite well, which is nice. It makes a lot of air come in here, it's very open, it feels very light. Problem is, and I think probably everyone in this room has had this at one point, you're in the middle of a meeting and you look over and there's someone kind of tapping their ears, I booked this space, I've got a meeting in here. Now, that's all well and good, but if you've got cameras that are designed to pick up any face in the room, and you're expecting to just have a one-on-one discussion with me, and then all of a sudden out of the side you see a face that big, yeah, we can start to see why this might be a little bit of a concern. But of course, I wouldn't have said any of this if we didn't have a solution for it, so I'm not that silly. However, let's show you what that looks like. So if I open up this menu side, you can see what we're calling meeting zones. Now, meeting zones is a way of not only being able to make sure that rooms with glass walls can be gated, but all of your open collaboration areas too. If you've got a board pro in an open space, you don't want Stephen walking behind 5 meters and the board pro camera doing its job and zooming in onto it. So instead, we have meeting zones. Now, meeting zones is very simple, as you can see. There's 2 arrows in that. That's myself and Stephen. You can even see which way we're pointing. And there's a blue perimeter, which is around the outside. We drew that. Matt's telling the camera, if you're in the blue perimeter, these people are meant to be in the meeting. Now, let me go simulate being that annoying person trying to join the meeting. And I won't even go out the room. I'll just go by the door, and the camera knows not to pick me up, because I'm outside of the meeting zone area. However, obviously, if I come back in, if I come and sit down again, what the camera's going to do is make that assessment, make sure it's a real person on the other side, and not just a kind of ghost figure going through. And when it's sure it's there, it's going to frame me and make sure you can see me. Now, to those of you who were listening very carefully then, yes, you could hear me. I will admit that. However, I would hope in your organizations that when you open a door and you see someone has a meeting going on, that you probably wouldn't continue to scream at the device that was in the front of the room, because to be perfectly honest, that's not a technology problem, that's a cultural or HR problem that you're going to need to fix. However, when you've done that, we can make sure that at Cisco, all of the technology is there to make sure you are seen and heard as best as possible, and that we can provide you with these cinematic experiences. So, what do you guys think?
Awesome.
Good.
Nice. Oh, that was confident from I like that.
That would been the quickest. That
was efficient.
Yeah, that was very efficient. We are not normally this efficient, by the way.
You are
Very lucky.
But it seems that we may have even given you... See, Cisco devices are nice, because we give you a little bit of time back to stretch your legs. No one else is going to do that. Cisco devices, though, we're the best for that. We're your favorite session. Guys, do you guys have any questions? We actually have the odd occasion where we have time for questions. And by the way, silence is certainty in my eyes, so if you don't have any questions, I'm just going to take that as a compliment.
I will take any questions if there are one, and I'll answer from here. Just, yep. But honestly, I had some challenge with my quota for Q4, but after this session, this will be fixed. So I'm not worried anymore. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Again, let me just last. Okay, no questions. Okay. Good. Cut. Bun. Înapoi la slide-uri, înapoi la limba română. Aș avea o întrebare. Credeți că ar exista slide-uri pe lumea asta cu ajutorul cărora să vă explic atât de clar ce au făcut colegii mei? Eu cred că nu, sau eu nu le-am găsit. Sper că vi s-a părut interesant și, repet, cred că ați văzut tehnologia noastră, sigur mai avem și alte lucruri pe care le putem face, dar cred că acestea sunt cele mai importante. O să mă întorc să vă mai spun câteva cuvinte înainte de încheiere. Vă povesteam de întâlnirile spațiale, ca să le spun în limba română, și revin la variantele 3D pentru diferite industrii și diferite situații. Sigur, poate nu se aplică la toată lumea, în toate situațiile, dar uneori este foarte important. Și, bineînțeles, dacă mâine sau săptămâna viitoare sau luna viitoare vă decideți să evaluați soluțiile noastre, bineînțeles că ne aveți pe noi, aveți pe colegii și partenerii noștri de la ETA să vă ajute, dar dacă vreți să vă formați o primă idee despre ce ar fi potrivit într-o sală de conferință pe care doriți să o echipați, avem un site extrem de ușor de utilizat și dacă vreți să-l vedeți, puteți să veniți după sesiune la noi în sediu. Și în această pagină introduceți toate datele dumneavoastră dintr-o sală anume. Lungime, lățime, înălțime, număr de locuri, tipul de masă, absolut toate informațiile pe care le aveți și site-ul vă va recomanda cel mai potrivit echipament cu acoperirea camerelor, cu acoperirea microfoanelor, dacă display-urile sunt suficient de mari sau dacă sunt prea mari. Toate aceste informații le puteți avea ca o primă evaluare. Repet, asta nu înseamnă că vă transmite dumneavoastră munca, dar ca o primă idee. După aceea, bineînțeles că noi venim să vă ajutăm. Un alt aspect important, pentru că încercăm să nu avem doar o soluție de comunicare audio și video, ci să fie un întreg ecosistem. Toate echipamentele noastre vin cu un mic touch de control. L-ați văzut la colegii mei, îl arătau. Șerban, dacă vrei să îl arăți și tu. Deci toate vin cu acest mic echipament de control. Acesta are înglobați senzori de temperatură, umiditate, puritatea aerului. Bineînțeles, cu ajutorul camerelor și al microfoanelor din echipamentele noastre, avem informații despre ce se întâmplă în sală și din punct de vedere mediu. Pe de o parte, putem ști ce s-a întâmplat, dar cu această informație facem ce dorim. De exemplu, putem să setăm o alarmă în cazul în care temperatura crește peste 24 de grade sau cât hotărâți dumneavoastră, un mesaj să meargă către colegii de la întreținerea clădirii. Poate s-a defectat aerul condiționat sau poate s-a întâmplat ceva. Nu trebuie să așteptăm să vină cei care au o întâlnire să intre într-o sală încinsă. Am aflat dinainte, am rezolvat problema. De asemenea, avem și statistici despre gradul de ocupare, dacă a fost rezervată și n-a fost ocupată. Toate informațiile acestea care ne ajută să facem un management al clădirii foarte bun. Și pentru că am vorbit de acești senzori, pe lângă aceștia, folosind și senzorii noștri de la Meraki și senzori chiar și de la alți vendori, adunăm aceste informații și le putem suprapune peste planurile clădirii. De asemenea, dacă vi se pare interesant, vă invităm la stand să vedeți la lucru așa ceva. Și când intrăm în clădire, dacă am uitat, avem o întâlnire și am uitat să rezervăm sala, ne putem uita, vedem care sală este liberă, o putem rezerva chiar de aici. Vedem datele din fiecare sală, de asemenea, temperatură, umiditate și așa mai departe, și știm ce se întâmplă în permanență. Mai mult decât atât, dacă e clădirea mare și, nu știu, poate mă duc într-un sediu din altă țară pe care nu-l cunosc, îmi poate da inclusiv o hartă cum să ajung la sala de conferință. Deci aceste lucruri, dacă veniți la noi la stand, le veți vedea live pe o clădire, pe un sediu de-al nostru, pe mai multe etaje și puteți vedea toate aceste detalii. Urma să spun asta înainte să intre colegii mei și să vă spun că experiența este cea mai importantă și am vrut să vă ofer experiența colegilor mei. Cred că, sau sper că considerați această sesiune foarte interesantă, repet, nu datorită mie, ci datorită colegilor mei. Sper că v-am stârnit interesul. Dacă mai aveți timp și chef, la noi la stand, dacă nu, repet, împreună cu colegii noștri, oricând vă stăm la dispoziție cu mare plăcere. Vă mulțumesc foarte mult pentru timpul acordat.